Hello and welcome to the Wire Talks. I'm Sidharth Bhatia. The much honored and popular music composer A R Rahman recently made a statement that provoked such a backlash against him. He said he was not getting much work in the film industry and this could be for communal reasons, implying that the cause was his religion. He also said the film Chava, which he scored for, was divisive. The attacks began immediately. He was talking rubbish, his music was in any case mediocre, and he couldn't stand up against younger talent. These were what were thrown at him. There were some of these accusations have continued, even though it has kind of tapered off. Rahman has since recorded a clarification of sorts, but has not retracted his original statement. I find that very interesting. This opens broader questions about everyday prejudice that somebody might face because of their religion. Not getting a job, not being able to rent or buy a home, a house, and treatment in the workplace. How prevalent is this kind of behavior? I invited writer, teacher, and activist Harsh Mander, who has worked on this topic and has seen it in his life over the years. Harsh was an IAS officer who quit after the 2002 violence in Gujarat. Since then, he has been working on issues of communalism and healing. He started the Karwan-e Mohabbat campaign in solidarity with the victims of communal or religiously motivated violence. He is now the director of Center for Equity Studies, a research organization based in New Delhi. Harsh Mander, welcome to the Wire Talks.
Thanks. Pleasure to be with you, Siddharth.
You've met a lot of people who have been subjected to some kind of communal uh, attacks, from the violent to the not so subtle but still not violent. What did you think when you read the statement made by A.R. Rahman?
My heart broke for many reasons. Firstly, A R Rahman is a person who represents, I think, you know, the gentlest, most dignified kind of persona, apart from being a formidable talent. The fact that he had experienced what seemed to him like discrimination for 8 years before he gently spoke a line or two, and then this barrage of hate was thrown at him. I think it reflects a much larger problem of what is happening in our society, because this is also a period where there is a kind of epidemic of hate speech. I've just, in fact, completed, and I'm not sort of plugging for it. I just completed a book on hate speech in India, which I've called "It Started with Words," which basically draws from the Holocaust experience that the Holocaust didn't start in the gas chambers. It started with hate speech, and I'm seeing India, has normalized levels of hate speech that are terrifying and which can lead us into a situation of mass violence. That is acceptable. I myself filed criminal charges, criminal cases, criminal complaints against some of the worst hate speeches. The police isn't even willing to register them. And here, one gentle, talented hero of sorts just shares a little bit of his pain, and this is what he's subjected to. So that's one. But Siddharth, I did want to say that during the last 4 or 5 years, I find when I travel around the country, people of Muslim identity reach out and wish to sit with me in a closed room to share their pain. you know, where they then don't have to censor or worry about the implications of what they're going to say. And there is so much pain. And the word I hear most is fear, that डर लगा रहता है, all the time. When you go on a train now, you're worried nobody should recognize you to be of Muslim identity. When just generally when somebody leaves the home, you're feeling fearful. Lynching has really done that. It's a performance of hate. That's the word I hear most. And second, I hear about, a sense of betrayal. Was India always like this? Or, were we kidding ourselves when we felt that we belonged and were accepted as equal citizens? And then there's, I mean, the big violence, lynching, etc. I won't even speak about here. But even from middle class Muslims, they tell me stories, and when I read about A R Rahman, I was recalling this. For instance, there's a very good-looking young Muslim medical student in Hyderabad was telling me that his teacher's reading out the roll call, and when she comes to him, he said, "Oh, and love jihad." So the class starts laughing. He says, "No, sorry, ma'am, my name is not Love Jihad. It is XYZ. No, no, but boys like you do love jihad," and so on. And then he said that became his nickname in the class.
And
You
then
know,
this is Hyderabad, where there are
yeah,
a
yeah,
fairly
yeah, yeah, rich, well-to-do Muslim guy. Another person, I think, it got a little well known in Manipal. I think the teacher was again reading out, and she said, "Oh, Ajmal Kasab." And then everyone laughs. And he got up and he said, "This is not funny, and you have no business to say this to me." I have another friend who said, I won't mention her name, but her father had passed away, and his name was Zaidi, and she was going to this office, and she kept saying, "My father's XYZ Zaidi." "Ha ha, jihadi." "Sorry, no, my father's name is Zaidi." "Yeah, yeah, same thing, jihadi." These are things that have become so normal in everyday life, and our Muslim brothers and sisters are expected to just bear it and keep smiling, and never utter the smallest complaint. I think what's happening with A.R. Rahman is is symbolic of what happens if you want to share your pain for a moment with your fellow countrymen and women.
but one of the things that has been thrown at him
Hmm.
uh, is that uh, he's so successful. He's been in films which are not necessarily. I mean, he's still getting work. What's
Correct.
he complaining about?
Mhm. Yeah.
So it's not ad hominem, but in the
Mhm.
sense of saying that you're getting work. You were successful at one time, hugely successful. You got work from the same producers. So what's
Mhm.
the complaint about? So uh, and that's in a sense a question that can be asked. What would kind of what could have
Ye-
provoked him
yeah.
to say this?
So, so can I, firstly, I think he is still probably arguably, the greatest talent we have, that can be debated. But certainly his time has not passed. But more importantly, I again this response and the fact that, oh, his time has passed and he's mediocre and so on. It reminds me a lot of what I call a general coarsening of the public discourse, not just in India but around the world. So we have leaders like Trump. I remember Meryl Streep had made some statement in the Golden. She got the Golden Globe Lifetime Award, and she said something about Donald Trump. And his response was, "Oh, she's a useless, overrated actress," and not responding to what she said, but trying to sort of demean her. I think that's another pattern that the person should have responded to the fact that yes, he's expressing this concern. Instead, you're trying to devalue him, and I think that's part of the general coarsening of discourse.
Again, one of I'm just laying out
Yeah,
the
yeah, sure,
situation.
sure. The
This
devil's
is,
advocate situation. Yeah, yeah.
you do realize that as a journalist, I have to
Mhm.
present this kind of context.
Mm. I'm a
Uh,
I'm
not
I'm I'm an I'm a non-violent responder, so I won't try to box your face, but but let me hear
no,
you.
no, 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 no. But
Yeah.
uh, uh, the top stars in the Hindi film industry, the male stars, are and have been for many years Muslims.
Mhm.
Do you think they could have faced communal prejudice?
Uh, these top stars have also on occasion very, very, very hesitantly spoken about that sense of feeling discriminated against. It's much more, it's not simply about not getting work. It is, I mean, if they bring in the money, they're still getting work. But it's, how every word they do, every action. I mean, Shah Rukh Khan goes to pay tribute to Lata Mangeshkar at her funeral, and he says the Muslim prayer and blows into the air, which is, and people start saying he's spitting, and this is part of a thuk jihad. It's this kind. I mean, nothing that they do can. Uh, Everything is under scrutiny from a very negative communal kind of uh, view. It's not as if all people do it, but the trolls are constantly looking at them. They're not looking at Akshay Kumar for, he can do foolish things, he can say inappropriate things, etc. That doesn't. But if you are of Muslim identity, quite clearly you are continuously under scrutiny for something that you can be caught on or for, and something that can be plugged into the prevailing prejudices about Muslims, that, oh, somehow he's disloyal to this country, or somehow, Dosang, Diljit, I mean, his comments where he speaks about friendship with Pakistan, for instance, is then completely blown out. I mean, if a person of Hindu identity spoke about friendship with Pakistan, would not receive the same kind of trolling. So I think it's this business that, yes, they are getting work, but I think they are continuously careful about saying anything that can be uh, it's, I don't think it's misunderstood. I mean, people can clearly understand what they're saying, but something that can be twisted from a communal perspective and thrown back at you as a troll. I think they have to be careful.
Again, should we not, social media where trolling happens the most,
Ji.
um, should we really take it that seriously or worry about it beyond a point?
See, we're now living in a world where a lot of your life is on social media. I mean, in a sense, especially younger people, their relationships, their sort of worldviews are all. I mean, people in your and my generation, for us, social media doesn't dominate our life in the way that it does for young people. And I think we do need to take seriously the conversations on social media. Also, so that at a larger level, uh, when I look, communal riots of the past always required what I call an explosion, a creation of hatred as an explosion. So you have to have the train burning in Godhra, the chief minister talking about it as a terror attack, parading of the bodies, and then there's an explosion of violence. So there's what I call the manufacture of hatred. I think what is happening now is a continuous. I mean, that you don't need the sudden explosions. Uh, every time you open your phone, you're getting one new fix of hate. You know, literally as many times a day as you open your phone, you're getting more. And so hate is becoming so normalized. And for that, the principal agency is social media. And therefore, I think we need to pay very close attention to what is happening in social media. I mean, there was that uh, sort of serial on Netflix. I think it was called Adolescence. It's a it's a very important reminder for those of us who belong to older generations about how real is social media and what it can do to your understanding of the world. One more thing I've seen in major incidents of hate violence. For instance, there was this guy who, on the 25th anniversary of the Babri Masjid in Raj Samand close to Udaipur, he decided he wanted to kill a Muslim man, anyone, and he organized it. He got his nephew to film it and so on, and he killed him. We visited his family, and they were telling us that he'd lost his job during demonetization, and then after that, from morning till night, he used to just watch videos, and they charged him up to this degree that he decided to do this performative killing of a Muslim man, and so on. So I think social media has to be taken very seriously for what it. And going back to that that line, it started with words. Hate violence begins with hate propaganda, for which the principal instrument today is social media, but also, of course, cinema, popular cinema, and of course, our mainstream television channels. I think these are the three principal ways in which hate is propagated. So all three have to be taken seriously.
Yeah, but that's as far as communication media is concerned. In fact, I would add politicians also.
Yeah,
Uh,
and religious leaders. I think just to complete the story,
yeah.
so-called religious leaders, people in religious robes, politicians, of course, and these three. Yes.
So because if you've noticed, and I'm sure you have,
Yeah.
it's minor politicians from all kinds of backgrounds who then pick up the thread. We don't know who feeds whom,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
they start talking about this in the most nasty manner.
Yeah.
And I remember, I mean, you will remember, we all know Yogi Adityanath had once called
Yeah.
Shah Rukh Khan a terrorist,
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
if we recall. So it's a kind of vicious cycle, and we don't know who feeds whom, but certainly the cues come from both sides.
Hmm.
So when you say that social media must be taken seriously, social media reflects those views and
And
perpetuates
amplifies them as well.
and begets those views.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So yes, social media should be taken seriously, but it's the leaders, identifiable people, who
Yeah.
also are part of this.
So that I agree with you, and I'll just say something that when I look closely at major communal massacres of the past, long before there was any social media, the power of hate propaganda and what it does. Bhagalpur is a really classic example. Bhagalpur, in one district, they killed, according to some estimates, about 2,000 people. Muslims, village after village, was slaughtered. The basis was a rumor that Muslim young people in tuition centers in Bhagatpur town have Hindus have been slaughtered. Not even the hair of one of those children had been hurt. But this, how this message passed village after village, leading to a slaughter of maybe 2,000 people, long before there was social media. So I think social media is a vehicle, but the creation of this hatred is something that is autonomous of social media. I think that is important to understand.
Probably manufactured.
Yeah,
Uh, you know that I was when I was reading upon this and researching this, I found and remembered
hmm,
the recent incident of Hindutva parties in Jammu, in Katra, who
yeah,
demanded that students who were admitted to medical college, 50 odd Muslim students, should not be given admission. So they shut down the college, the
yeah,
administration.
absolutely. You know, as it
And
happens, Siddharth, sorry,
they were Hindu students who had got admission. After they must have worked hard for it, but
yeah,
even now they are without a future.
it's reached levels of. I mean, it would be almost like black comedy, except it's dead serious. I mean, we had a similar example in Assam, where there were floods in the Assam city, in Guwahati city. The chief minister says this is flood jihad, and he claims that a Muslim owned private university had cut some trees, and it was a jihad to flood the whole city. And I mean, that was bad enough. Then they de-recognized that institute, although it in its rankings it was considered one of the best in the Northeast. So it's this kind of really, and if you, I it happens that a lot of almost a third to half of the people who work with me are of Muslim identity, as it happens. And I hear from them, in very real time, how they are reacting to this. I mean, so this university thing, for instance, they were so anguished. They were saying that if you go through an examination and you qualify and you happen to be Muslim, uh, is that a reason to close down the university? You know?
Tell me, you are a very keen observer of popular culture, cinema especially. I know that. And one of the things that you're a keen observer of popular culture, especially cinema. And one of the things Rahman also said was that Chava was a divisive film.
Mhm.
So he had worked on it. He said that I did work on it, but I found it a bit divisive. Now, as an observer, as a student, as a film goer, what have you noticed about the films, the productions that are coming out in the last few years?
So Siddharth, I mean, yeah, I love cinema, and it's sort of like my secret love. And I write about it occasionally. I also teach, say in Heidelberg, I teach a course around India through cinema. So I have tried to look at this quite closely. I think we are seeing what I call quite clearly the Nazification of our cinema. And I'll say this, I'm saying this very sort of thoughtfully, mindfully. When you look and you think of the 1930s, cinema was still a very new medium, but Hitler and Goebbels, they really relied a lot on popular cinema for generating hatred. All the hate conspiracies, etc., against Jews was propagated through cinema. And the cinema, very similar to what is happening now in our country. These were films that were praised by Hitler and so on, and he would watch them publicly with his senior colleagues, etc. Very similar to what is happening now. And so they recognized the power of cinema when it was still a very young medium. I think our leaders today are subscribing to the same sort of playbook. I just wanted to add one more thing that I really found it fascinating that, by 19, the 1941, 42, when it became more and more clear that Germany was going to lose the war, they shut down everything. They shut down schools, but they still didn't shut down the cinemas. Cinemas ran right up to the end because they saw it as such an important medium to communicate largely the hatred and prejudice which was the foundation of their ideology. I think our cinema is doing very consciously doing that, and uh, uh, so this notion of the Muslim as being a sexual predator, violent, intolerant, coarse, all of that is, and since I'm older and so are you. I mean, I recall in the films of the 50s and 60s, the kind Rahim Chacha was a necessary part of the neighbor who was kind and helpful, was a necessary part of the formula of the films of those times, and right up to Amar Akbar Anthony. So we have now, our films, even before the BJP came, transformed the Muslim to be either a terrorist or a gangster. And the Muslim female is shown as somebody who is largely, I mean, there are exceptions, but largely somebody who's so oppressed that she cannot get protection from within her community, and has to be saved by people from outside.
Well, that I think is a part of the larger thought process of the way the female is viewed. Whether
Yeah,
it's this female or that female, she is in
yeah.
need of protection.
But
And
but protection won't come from within her community. I think that's the one difference. I think
yeah,
that he means.
yeah. I'm glad because I too am having. I'm just blowing my trumpet a bit here, having written two or three books on cinema. Uh,
Absolutely.
and I am a keen observer of 1930s films
Yes.
as well as 1950s Hindi films. So yes, I'm completely on board with what you're saying. The nation building project of the 50s, and now it's, I may call it,
The nation breaking project
nation
of the
breaking. You took the words
2020s.
out of my mouth. You're
Yeah,
absolutely right. The
yeah,
nation breaking, and you know creation, the creation of a particular view of the nation, which is
right.
what is going on. Which brings me to, I mean, I didn't want to go into it because that's a rabbit hole which will take us down and keep us busy for a long time. But
Mm,
I do think I would like to know your views on Durandar, because to my mind, Durandar represents a particular effort, a very intelligent effort to create a world in which not just Muslims but of course Pakistan in a particular light.
yes.
So what do you think is going on with a film like that specifically?
See, we're protected from going into the rabbit hole because I haven't had the stomach to watch the film so far. I must, but I've heard. I mean, I just could say a line or two of what I've heard from friends. They say it's a dangerous film because it's very well made. It's technically very good, and and therefore it's much more effective. But the net result is to show Muslims, in particular Pakistan, particularly Pakistanis, in very evil light. And I think that that whole feeding into, because Pakistani and now Bangladeshi are kind of proxies for Indian Muslims. So every Indian Muslim is in disguise, some kind of Pakistani or Bangladeshi or sympathetic to these, etc., etc. And so the hatred against Pakistan and now Bangladesh is really in order to demonize Muslims further. Um, I, I also wanted to give reference to what I hear, that a film called Ikkis, which by all accounts is a very beautiful anti-war war film, uh, where there's a very humanist portrayal of the Pakistani character. But how do you have to end the film with a with, with a I mean,
Disclaimer.
with a disclaimer that not all Pakistanis are like this? I mean, that's so absurd. It's
No, no,
so
that's
absurd.
clearly been imposed. That's clearly been imposed.
I mean, I just would like to go out of my way to say I've traveled to many parts of the world, but I've never found a people as gracious as the Pakistani people. I took my mother. We're originally from Pakistan, and I remember taking her there, and she was treated with so much warmth and grace. When we finally found her house, I knocked very hesitantly, and so that she could see the house. The man opened it, and I said, "I'm sorry, this is my mother," and she thinks this could have been her house. Without a second, he turns to my mother and says, "माता जी आप क्यों कह रहे हैं कि आपका घर था? आज भी आप ही का घर है." And the warmth with which he took her in, I mean, that kind of graciousness. Of course, I mean, our enmity can be with the Pakistani establishment or military. Why should we have any enmity with the Pakistani people? And why can't they be lovely, decent people in Pakistan? Of course there are.
Yeah, I mean, the film industry has been known for its secular attitudes.
Yeah,
And actually, by the way, I may add here that those secular attitudes permeate down to the level of people working behind the scenes. So, from the technician to the music director to the songwriter to the cameraman to this, it's a mix.
right.
And
Right.
you know that some of the greatest bhajans have been written and sung by
Yeah.
and picturized on Muslims.
Yeah,
Uh,
I
and
was thinking about that. And Rahi Masum Raza wrote Mahabharat,
that's right.
the whole serial. So, uh,
So
it is,
I fear that that also will start getting affected in times to come if this doesn't stop. But you know, for in a mild way, uh, Rahman has withdrawn what he said. Not withdrawn, correction. He
yeah.
has said that, he's put it in context saying that, India is my inspiration, etc., etc. But it's clearly a message has gone down that to others, please don't raise your head and start making these kind of statements.
Yeah, and so that isn't it sad that a person who composed Ma Tujhe Salaam has to now say, "I love my country," Uh,
Exactly.
yeah.
Exactly. Well put.
Mm.
So, but Harsh, should we bemoan or should we fight back or push back?
I think we have to. I mean, there are no people in the world, and I say this quite thoughtfully, who are as influenced by their cinema as we are. Right from our growing up years to now. I mean, our films were never realistic, but they were always reflective of a larger, ethos, or they were culturally resonant. And we cannot allow that space to be taken over by what I still am firmly convinced is a minority ideology of hate. And I think that we need far more people, and it'll have to be people not of Muslim identity who take the lead to tell stories, to have characters which uh, refuse to uh, refuse to reinforce these stereotypes of hate. It has to be because otherwise we are losing India. I mean, every second Indian is below the age of 25. And they've only grown up in this India, and these are the films they watch, these are the conversations they hear. I feel very strongly, and I try to do this as much as we can in our work. We have to have different conversations, however hard it might be. And it's a really strange time where, I mean, the establishment, the deep state here, the word they often use for me, because I'm charged with all sorts of crimes, that Harsh Mander is a dangerous man. And I find that really extraordinary. I mean, you could disagree with many things, but to call me dangerous. But I realize more and more that conversations about love, building a society on love, is now a very dangerous idea.
It
And
is
all of
certainly.
us and all of us have to embrace that danger. If we have to if we have to not allow the poison to spread further than it has.
Yeah, very, very well said, Harsh.
Mm.
Uh, on that note, I think we covered a lot of ground. I'm glad that this subject as this topic and this situation has given us the opportunity to discuss, um, you know, Rahman and the wider issues. So in such a detailed manner, I thank you for enlightening us, and I trust it's not just you. The silent majority is perhaps thinking on similar lines. I live in hope. Uh,
Mhm.
and
Mm.
thank you. So, thank you very much for participating in this show, this
Yeah.
discussion. And
Thank- thank-
we'll be back next week. That was Harsh Mander, peace activist and an indefatigable fighter for communal harmony. We'll be back next week with another guest. Till then, from me, Sidharth Bhatia, and the rest of the team, goodbye.